Hi students, this video is to show you how to do the practice problems that are found in section 7.01 on scientific notation. So this is the answer key. Please copy it down with me and feel free to pause this video as we go. So here we have number 1. Arrange the numbers in order from least to greatest. And this is the problem that they gave you. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out which one of these numbers is the smallest. And the more negative the power is, the smaller the number is. So this -6, it's the most negative power. So that means this is the tiniest number. If you were to write this in scientific notation, you would move the decimal 6 times to the left. So it would be a tiny, tiny number. So that one goes first. Then the next negative number is the one with the -2 power. So that goes next. And then you have this one with the +4th power. It's positive, that's why it's bigger. And then the last one is the one that has the biggest positive exponent, which is the 5.27 times 10 to the 7. Please make sure you're writing this down. Number 2, they want you to write this really big number in scientific notation. The first thing you have to realize is that the decimal belongs right here between the 2 and the 6. How did I know that? You always have to have one number and then the decimal right away. So that first number is 2, and right after the 2, we need a decimal right here. So how many spaces do you have to move to put the decimal right here? This problem doesn't have a decimal. If you were to put one, you're allowed to put one at the end. So here's your decimal, and you need to move it to the right spot. Let's see how many spots we need to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So it needs to move to the middle, 2.63 times 10 to the 8 jumps that we had to take to get there. Number 3. It gives you this big number again. It's the same thing, and you have to move the decimal right after the 7. So you have to move it 3, 6, 9 spaces. So that's why it's 7.0 times 10 to the 9. Moving on, question number 4. Write this number in standard notation. So that's like going backwards. It's in scientific notation, but you need to move it back. So you're going to move the decimal 3 times, but this time to the left. This is going to be a tiny number. So we need to move it 1, 2, 3. So that means I need to put the decimal point and then 2 zeros. So I moved it, it was after the 5, but I moved it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay? This -3 told me to do that. Number 5, find the sum of the two numbers. So what you do here is you write these numbers. You realize that they both have times 10 to the 6 and then times 10 to the 5. So what they did here was they made them match. Okay, they wanted them both to say 10 to the 6. So what they did was they kept this one the same, 1.03 times 10 to the 6. But then this one, they changed it. They wanted this one to also say 10 to the 6. So in order to make it say 10 to the 6, you have to move the decimal over 1. So you're going to move it to the left 1. So it's going to be 0.324. When you move it to the left, it always adds a little number here. So it went from 5 to 6. Then you can just add what's $1.03 plus 32 pennies, 0.324 of a penny. So you just add this up and you get 1.354. You can do it on your calculator. And then it just stays times 10 to the 6 times 10 to the 6. That power just stays like that. Number 6, find the difference of the numbers written in scientific notation. This is the same thing. They kept the 5.2 times 10 to the 4th the same. And this one, since it was 10 to the 3, they changed it and forced it to become 10 to the 4. So again, they moved the decimal over once, so it became 0.21. And then they went ahead and they subtracted that. You can use a calculator. 5.2 take away 0.21 gives you 4.99. And then you keep the ending the same, times 10 to the fourth. Number 7, they want you to multiply. When you're multiplying with scientific notation, you just multiply the numbers, the regular numbers, the 4.2 and the 1.5. Get a calculator and multiply those two, and you get 6.3. But then for the power, you have to add the exponents. 10 to the third power times 10 to the fourth power. You add the little numbers. 3 plus 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. So that is your answer. Number 8, here you're dividing. That's what quotient means. You're dividing these two. So what you do is on your calculator, you divide the 6.8 and the 3.4. These are your regular numbers. You're just dividing them on the calculator and you get 2.0. And then for the 10 to the fifth power divided by 10 to the third power, you subtract the little numbers. Okay, when you're multiplying, you add them, but when you're dividing, you subtract them. 5 take away 3 is 2, and this is your answer. Number 9, the radius of a planet Jupiter is approximately this big number. What's the diameter of Jupiter? Okay, so in order to do this, you had to know this formula. Okay, so just make sure you write down the formula. Diameter equals 2 times the radius. So we're multiplying 2 times this absolute value number because this was the radius. So what you do for that is you just multiply the 2 times the 7.1 and you get 14.2, and that's it. You're just multiplying these two numbers. The 10 to the 4 stays the same. 10 to the 4 stays the same. Now the tricky part of this problem is when you multiply 2 times 7, you get 14. And this is not in scientific notation because it needs to be a number and then the decimal. So the decimal should be right here after the 1, and it's not. It's after the 4. So you have to move it over one spot. If you move it over one spot, remember you have to add to the exponent. So this used to be a 4, and now it's a 5. And then they went ahead and they turned this absolute value, this scientific notation number into a regular number by moving the decimal 5 times. So if you move the decimal 5 times, you go 1, 2, and then add 3 zeros, 3, 4, 5. And that's how they got this number. Last problem, it tells you that the population of India is 1.2 times 10 to the 9th. And they have the area being 3.3 times 10 to the 6th. And it says, if it were divided equally among all the people, how much land would each person get? So you put the land on top, and you're dividing it by the number of people on the bottom. So here's the land, 3.3 times 10 to the 6th. That goes on top. And you're dividing it by however many people there are. And the population of India is 1.2 times 10 to the 9th. You put that on the bottom. And then we're going to divide this. Regular numbers divided by the regular numbers. 3.3 divided by 1.2 gives us 2.8. Then you take the 10 to the 6 and the 10 to the 9 separately. And when you're dividing, do you remember what to do with the little numbers? Hopefully you're thinking to subtract. 6 take away 9 is -3. So this is your answer. If you want to write the number out, you would move the decimal 3 times to the left. 1, 2, 3. So it would be 0.0028.